Problems affecting your homes began before mining in Kelty became industrialised. Kelty was then a small rural hamlet surrounded by streams and mosses are, to all intents, bogs. With the new mines came Blairadam brickworks. They dug brick clay from the area west of Main Street, and the council infilled the area with rubbish, piping 5 live burns under Kelty as they did so. Then the council built homes upon the rubbish. This map shows the system of ditches and mosses existing before work began on your homes. This was before the site was open cast mined. And this is what the moss some homes are built upon looked like. Note new drains being installed. This Google Earth photo shows the ditches and moss with the streets superimposed upon it. The end of the trotting track, dump, oozes contamination. The contaminated area never dries out. These 2 photos, taken during a 5 to 7 weeks drought, show something still seeping from the dump. Remember those ditches? They were all interlinked and fed down to and under the Great North Road to Loch Oa. From here, let us review the history of how the area was contaminated. Burns flowing through and under Kelty have been contaminated by mining for centuries. Some burns in the forest smell of sulphur and run rusty red. Then Blairadam brickworks left clay pits that were infilled with rubbish. These too contaminated the burns through Kelty. The Kelty colliery was within the site area, as were several other mines, as this map shows. The Aiken and Lindsay mines had large pings, and one of them was burning. And perhaps the worst of all, heavy metal contamination from the gasworks that was built upon the site of the old Kelty colliery. The contaminated ditches were comparatively benign while undisturbed. The M90 was built through a cutting and cut through the live burns west of Kelty. This did not end the use of the culverts for stormwater drainage. However, after they built the M90, there were flooding problems, and a pipe was installed under the central reservation and rubble drains either side under what became the hard shoulders. I will now try to show how all this has left you, the new owners, with such problems. I downloaded 3 reports from a website showing contaminated areas. The first centred on the North Road at the end of the old rail line. The second centred on the main street, Kelty Hill Road Junction. And the third centred on 16 Shields Cottages. Overlapping the three circles upon each other places the main known contamination well within the site. This before planning was granted. Let us review the historic facts. Kelty has lain downstream of burns contaminated by mines in the forestry for around 200 years. Contaminated burns were piped under Kelty. They emerged via culverts into open ditches east of Main Street. The culverts were used as storm water drains. My first home in Kelty was in Henderson Buildings in Lawrence Street. At the bottom of my garden was a ditch. Sometimes human excrement would float past in that ditch. The ditch emerged from a culvert beneath the bank. It passed behind the bowling green and the gardens of Station Road. After passing under the North Road, it was ditched across the fields. Some Mitchell homes built in that corner had raw sewage flooding due to that drainage system. One buried concrete pipe looks much like another, and they got it wrong. I moved to Shields Cottages in 1970. Mitchell's caused flooding problems there too. The case of connecting to the wrong concrete pipe. In these clips you can see the line of the old Shields path and the ditch alongside. When Mitchell's began work, I saw JCB filling in the ditch and culvert at the corner of the public park. I phoned the water board. It was weeks before they came. Mitchell's had several homes built with the old ditch by then. Mitchell's then had to pipe the ditch. But what of the bit under the already built home? This is the line of the old Shields path and ditch. Mitchell's, having built houses on the west side of Barlick Road, were now building on the east side. They now got flooding through them. And we all know just where the water was coming from, don't we? Next rainy spell had water roaring over my boundary and battering against my conservatory. A complaint to the council had Mitchell's do work behind our gardens. I don't know what, as I was away on a course. Next I noticed them hauling massive sandstone blocks onto site, far too large for building villas. I decided to investigate. They dug a deep trench and lowered the blocks into it and backfilled it with clay. They had made a dam underground to divert water away from their site. There was more flooding at the bottom end of Shields Path, with wrong pipe connections. This now saw 5 to 7 years of floodings. Those piles of earth were almost ever present as they tried to correct the problem. The old ditch had a railway sleeper bridge at a field gate. Between it and number 1 cottage was a large underground reservoir. The pits pumped water into this sump from the pits. Mitchells nearly lost a JCB into the sump. They couldn't have known about the sump. More recent work saw a rubble drain laid alongside that hedge at the corner of the public park. Fife Council allowed open cast mining. This disturbed and spread contamination throughout the area. If I can find reported contamination on the internet, so can they. Just past number 4 Murray Villas was an open gate to a well-defined right-of-way. It avoids a thicket and patch of Japanese knotweed on the corner. Instead of first dealing with the knotweed, the developers went in through it and thus spread it throughout the whole site. They eventually uprooted the knotweed by machine, took the several patches to one area and burned it. It should be dealt with in situ. I spotted the developer digging up the road. I decided to investigate. In the ditch on the Blairadam Fields side of the North Road was a slab, and I could hear water running a very long way down. There were orange plastic pipes on both sides of the road, and a line of white manhole covers leading through the fields towards the meadows. The ditch from Murray Place also led to the same point. I just had to find out more. I set off the long way round. The new orange pipe ended in a ditch that led from an existing culvert. Old maps show the orange pipe running from above the opened up old culvert, following its line and discharging into it anyway. The ditch ended as a burn that ran into the nature reserve. Meanwhile, I had monitored seepage from the old dump, and there had been a 2-month drought. Saturday, 12th of April. Sixteenth of April. to the form of infill on site. It was built across the course of an old stream. Water still seeps through. Busy 8th of April. I've had no rain for over months, yet water is still lying. The boggy pot. You see from the grains come in the water that it has been lying for some considerable time. It continues round the end of the infill dump. Where there is also a particular bad boggy bit. The drainage system from here follows a ditch to a junction with other ditches in this area. The area leading down from it has never been farmed and has always been a bog. At the moment, Lomond Homes have already started work putting roads in. They do not as yet have full planning permission. The bad part of the boggy stretch which runs from the infill dump to the junction of the ditches. You can see where the tractors have been sinking into the ground. April the 23rd. The developers have stripped off the topsoil and exposed yellow clay. There is no doubt where the contaminated surface water has ended up. As clay is heavy, it has sunk to the bottom by the time it reaches the wider loch, but who knows what else went further into the loch.